Here's what people consumed to survive during the Great Depression. Imagine trying to feed your family with almost nothing. During the Great Depression, people faced this challenge head-on, using creativity and ingenuity to make the most out of very limited resources. Today, you will discover how simple and affordable ingredients were transformed into memorable meals. These dishes not only helped people survive during tough times, but also left a lasting cultural impact. Get ready to explore the resourcefulness that turned everyday ingredients into comforting and inventive meals. Depression-era stew. During the Great Depression, people needed to make every meal count. That's where Depression-era stew, also known as mulligan stew or hobo stew, came in. This stew was like a magic trick for making the most out of what you had. Why was it so popular? Well, not only was it affordable, but it also filled you up and provided much-needed nutrition. This dish became a staple because it was easy to make and stretched limited ingredients into a hearty meal. The beauty of this stew was that it could feed a large family without costing much. People would often make a huge batch, so it lasted several days. This stew wasn't just about food, it became a symbol of frugality and community. Sharing a big pot of stew was a way to connect with others and make sure no one went hungry. So, next time you're looking for a comforting, budget-friendly dish, remember how this simple stew kept people going through tough times. Let's see what's next. Cold milk soup. Now, let's dive into cold milk soup, a surprising and simple meal that became a staple during the Great Depression. This soup might sound unusual, but it was a clever way to create a filling meal from inexpensive ingredients. Cold milk soup was exactly what it sounds like, a soup made from milk, often served chilled. To make it more nutritious and satisfying, people would add ingredients like stale bread, crackers, rice, or oatmeal. These additions helped to thicken the soup and give it more substance. Sometimes, a bit of sugar or fruit was mixed in for extra flavor. This dish wasn't just about filling up, it was about using what was available in creative ways. Even though it was simple, cold milk soup was a comforting choice during tough times. It turned a basic ingredient like milk into a meal that could keep you full and satisfied, showing how basic staples could be combined to create something both filling and soothing. So, next time you look at what you have in your kitchen, remember how something as basic as milk can be transformed into a comforting meal with a little creativity. Prune pudding. Let's talk about a dessert that became a favorite during the Great Depression, prune pudding. What is prune pudding? Prune pudding is a simple and sweet treat made from prunes, which are dried plums. Prunes were cheap and easy to find, making them perfect for people on a tight budget. The pudding combines these prunes with a few other ingredients to create a comforting and satisfying dessert. Why was it popular? During the Depression, people needed to stretch their food as far as possible. Prunes were not only affordable, but they also provided natural sweetness and nutrients. This pudding was a great way to make a little go a long way, turning basic ingredients into something special. How it made a difference. Prune pudding wasn't just about filling bellies. It also brought a touch of joy during tough times. Even when money was tight, families could enjoy a sweet treat that didn't break the bank. This simple dessert is a great example of how people turned limited resources into something memorable and delightful. So next time you see prunes, remember that they played a key role in comforting people during the Great Depression. It's a tasty reminder of how creativity in cooking can make a big difference. Milo Corno. Next up, let's dive into Milo Corno, a creative dish that turned simple ingredients into a satisfying meal. During the Great Depression, people needed to make the most out of what they had, and Milo Corno was a perfect example of that. Milo Corno combined milk and cornmeal to create a hearty and filling dish. Milk was a staple in many households, while cornmeal was cheap and easy to find. By mixing these two ingredients, people could create a meal that was not only affordable but also comforting. What's interesting about Milo Corno is how versatile it was. Some people added spices or herbs to give it more flavor, while others mixed in vegetables or even a bit of cheese to make it more exciting. This flexibility made Milo Corno a go-to dish for many families looking to stretch their food budget. So, as you can see, Milo Corno wasn't just about surviving, it was about using creativity to make the most out of simple ingredients. And that spirit of adaptability and resourcefulness is something we can all learn from today. Peanut butter and mayo sandwich. Have you ever heard of a sandwich made with peanut butter and mayo? It might sound strange, but this unusual combination was a clever way to make a meal during the Great Depression. During tough times, people had to get creative with the ingredients they had. Peanut butter was a cheap and filling option, while mayo added a bit of flavor. Mixing these two ingredients created a sandwich that was not only affordable, but also surprisingly satisfying. This sandwich shows just how inventive people were when resources were scarce. By combining simple ingredients in new ways, they turned an unusual idea into a practical solution for making meals stretch further. So next time you see peanut butter and mayo, remember that this quirky sandwich is a reminder of the resourcefulness people used to get through hard times. Sometimes, trying something new can lead to surprisingly good results. Garbage plate. Next up is the garbage plate, a clever way people turned leftovers into a nutritious meal during the Great Depression. The name might sound a bit off-putting, but this dish was all about making the most of what you had. Here's how it worked. Families would collect leftover bits of food from various meals, like meat, potatoes, vegetables, and even salad, and combine them all into one big plate. The idea was to use up every last bit of food so nothing went to waste. It wasn't just about stretching the budget, it was about being resourceful and creative with whatever was available. The garbage plate wasn't just a random mix of leftovers, though. People took care to balance flavors and textures to make it taste good and be filling. This dish was originally created for workers who needed a big, hearty meal on a tight budget. By combining different leftovers, they could make sure nothing went to waste while still enjoying a satisfying meal. It is a great example of how creativity can turn scraps into something delicious and nutritious. It shows the cleverness people used to get through tough times, turning what might have been thrown away into something worth savoring. Bean in tomato stew. Let's dive into bean in tomato stew, a dish that became a staple during the Great Depression. This stew combines beans and tomatoes, two affordable ingredients commonly found in households. Cooked together with basic seasonings, it creates a hearty and filling meal. Imagine a big pot bubbling away on the stove, with beans soaking up the rich tomato flavor. Beans were especially popular because they were inexpensive and packed with protein, while tomatoes added vitamins and a punch of flavor. This stew was not only nutritious, but also easy to make in large quantities, providing a satisfying meal that kept families full for hours. Bean in tomato stew highlights the importance of making the most out of simple, inexpensive ingredients and showcases the ingenuity of the time. This dish was all about ensuring that every meal counted while keeping it both tasty and affordable. So, as you can see, bean in tomato stew wasn't just about eating. It was about turning basic ingredients into a filling, nutritious meal and making the best out of limited resources. Tomato sauce with mashed potatoes. Next, let's explore tomato sauce with mashed potatoes. This dish might seem basic, but it was a favorite during the Depression for good reasons. By pairing a simple tomato sauce with creamy mashed potatoes, people created a meal that was both filling and affordable. The tomato sauce added a burst of flavor to the plain mashed potatoes, making a bland meal much more enjoyable. Plus, this combination was easy to make and didn't require expensive ingredients. Tomato sauce with mashed potatoes was popular because it was a clever way to make the most out of what you had. It shows how, even with limited resources, people found ways to create meals that were satisfying and comforting. Ritz mock apple pie. Let's explore mock apple pie, a clever twist on a classic dessert from the Great Depression. When fresh apples were often too expensive, people found a creative way to enjoy a sweet treat using Ritz crackers. instead. To make this unique pie, crushed Ritz crackers were mixed with sugar and spices, like cinnamon and nutmeg, to mimic the taste and texture of apple pie. The result was a surprisingly similar pie to the traditional apple pie, but much more affordable. Mock apple pie is a perfect example of how people used everyday ingredients to recreate comforting desserts. Even without apples, this pie provided a sweet and satisfying end to a meal, showcasing how a little creativity could go a long way. So, mock apple pie demonstrates that even when essential ingredients were missing, creativity could still create something truly enjoyable. Spaghetti with boiled carrots and white sauce casserole. Next up is spaghetti, boiled carrots, and white sauce casserole, a dish that turned simple ingredients into a hearty and satisfying meal. In this casserole, cooked spaghetti is mixed with boiled carrots and a creamy white sauce. The sauce, often made from basic pantry items like flour, milk, and butter, added richness and flavor. This dish was not only filling, but also economical, making it a practical choice during the Great Depression. The beauty of this casserole lies in its simplicity. It used what was available and transformed it into a comforting meal. Spaghetti, boiled carrots, and white sauce casserole exemplifies how creativity in the kitchen allowed people to make the most out of limited resources. Peanut butter stuffed baked onion. Let's explore a unique dish called peanut butter stuffed baked onion. It might sound unusual, but it's a great example of creative cooking during the Great Depression. In this dish, a large onion is hollowed out and filled with peanut butter, then baked until the onion is tender and the peanut butter is melted and flavorful. The combination of savory onion and nutty peanut butter creates a surprising and satisfying meal. Although it might seem unconventional, this recipe highlights how people used inexpensive ingredients in imaginative ways. It shows how even basic components can be transformed into something new and enjoyable with a bit of creativity. Vinegar Cobbler. Let's explore a unique dessert called Vinegar Cobbler. It might sound surprising, but vinegar played a special role in this sweet treat. Vinegar Cobbler is made with vinegar, sugar, and flour, creating a pie-like dessert. The tartness of the vinegar is balanced out with sweet ingredients and a touch of flour, making for a deliciously unexpected dessert. This dessert was a clever and affordable way to create a treat when resources were limited. Using vinegar not only added a unique flavor, but also helped stretch ingredients further. Vinegar Cobbler highlights how one could use acidic ingredients in creative ways to add flavor and texture to their desserts. Kraft Macaroni and Cheese Dinner. Let's take a look at Kraft Macaroni and Cheese Dinner, a meal that became a staple during the Great Depression. Kraft macaroni and cheese is a quick, affordable meal that gained popularity for its ease of preparation and low cost. The boxed meal consists of macaroni pasta and a cheesy sauce mix that comes right from the package. Its simplicity and price made it an appealing choice for many families facing tough times. During the Great Depression, families needed budget-friendly and filling options. Kraft macaroni and cheese fit the bill perfectly, providing comfort and nourishment without stretching the budget. Often served as a side dish or even as a main course, it became a go-to meal for many households. Kraft macaroni and cheese represents a shift towards processed foods in response to economic pressures, showcasing how people adapted to new products that simplified mealtime while helping to manage their expenses. Liver loaf. Next up is liver loaf. This dish combined liver with other simple, inexpensive ingredients to create a hearty meal. Liver loaf is made by mixing ground liver with ingredients like breadcrumbs, onions, and spices. It's then baked into a loaf shape. This dish was popular during the Great Depression because liver was cheap and packed with nutrients, making it a great way to stretch a food budget. In the tough times of the Depression, Liver loaf provided a filling and nutritious meal that helped families get through the day. Lima bean and peanut loaf. Next, let's talk about lima bean and peanut loaf. This creative dish combined lima beans with peanuts to make a hearty loaf. Lima beans and peanuts were used together to form a loaf that was both filling and nutritious. Lima beans provided a good source of protein and fiber, while peanuts added extra richness and flavor. By mixing these ingredients with breadcrumbs and spices, people created a meal that was both resourceful and satisfying. During the Great Depression, lima bean and peanut loaf was a clever way to use available ingredients and make a meal that could feed a family. This dish demonstrates the innovation of using legumes and nuts in new ways. Dandelion Greens. Now, let's explore dandelion greens. During the Great Depression, people foraged dandelion greens to add to their meals. Dandelion greens are nutritious and packed with vitamins. They were free for the picking, making them a valuable resource during tough times. People used these greens in salads, soups, and stews to add a burst of flavor and a boost of nutrition. These greens were more than just a supplement. They were a key part of survival cooking. By using dandelion greens, people made sure they got essential nutrients while stretching their food budget. Gelatin-based dishes. Next, let's look at gelatin-based dishes. Gelatin was a popular ingredient during the Great Depression because it was cheap and versatile. People used gelatin to make a variety of dishes, from savory salads to sweet desserts. It was a clever way to stretch ingredients and create filling meals. You could turn gelatin into anything from fruity jellies to layered salads with vegetables. This ingredient helped families save money while still enjoying a variety of textures and flavors. Gelatin's ability to hold different ingredients together made it a valuable resource in Depression-era kitchens. Cornstarch pudding. Now, let's talk about cornstarch pudding. Cornstarch was another budget-friendly ingredient that helped people create a sweet treat during tough times. Cornstarch pudding is a creamy, comforting dessert that was easy to make with just a few ingredients. It was popular because it was inexpensive and could be flavored in many ways, from vanilla to chocolate. This pudding provided a satisfying end to meals without costing much. Its simplicity and affordability made it a go-to dessert for families trying to stretch their food budgets. Creamed chipped beef on toast. Next, let's look at creamed chipped beef on toast. This savory dish was a staple during the Great Depression because it used basic, inexpensive ingredients. The meal consists of dried beef cooked in a creamy sauce, then served over toast. It was hearty and filling, making it a popular choice for families needing to stretch their food supply. Creamed chipped beef on toast was not only economical, but also easy to prepare. It turned simple ingredients into a comforting and satisfying meal, helping people get through difficult times with a bit of warmth and flavor. Poor man's stew. Discover the story behind poor man's stew, a dish that turned simple, low-cost ingredients into a satisfying meal. This stew was a staple during the Great Depression because it could be made with whatever was available. Imagine a mix of potatoes, carrots, and a bit of meat or beans, simmered together to create a hearty stew that was both filling and affordable. Its role in Depression-era cooking highlights how people used their ingenuity to stretch every ingredient and make the most out of limited resources. Poor man's stew wasn't just about filling up. It was about making do and finding comfort in times of scarcity. You've just discovered how people during the Great Depression turned simple, affordable ingredients into meals that were both creative and nourishing. These dishes not only helped families survive, but also offered valuable lessons.